Good morning. It is Sunday, the 14th of September, which means we are officially heavily into fall. Well, at least every place except for Florida, where we have perpetual summer, except for the tornadoes and the hurricanes, things of that sort. But you can still tell it's fall because the Tasty Cake pumpkin spice bars came up there. So white girls rejoice, pumpkin spice is coming back. We have all the other things that go on with October, the possible government shutdown, and who knows what. Let's discuss all the things that are be happening now in the rotation. Good morning. I am your Master of Public Health and also the Director of Public Policy and Politics over here at Suncoast Normal, Gary Stein. And I don't hear my cheering, but maybe it's in there.
No cheering because Carlos runs the board. So I'll give you a cheer for you.
I am just the mere political director. But our engineer is out today, taking a good, needed 5, so to speak. And so we have our executive director in the South Maryland, north of DC, where he hits them below the Beltway. Chris Cano. Chris, how are we doing today?
Oh man, it's definitely a different tone this Sunday. After the tragic events that we've seen this week, with Charlie Kirk being killed in front of the world, it is definitely a moment of pause and reflection for all of us professional shit talkers.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we talk a lot, but what it comes down to is we're allowed to talk a lot. And that is, I think, the ultimate thing we have to take away from this. Murder is wrong. Assassinations are wrong. But loss of First Amendment rights is also extremely wrong. And if a murder leads to loss of free speech, we are definitely in the negative. So let's keep those things in mind. Let's try to maintain a civil discussion, which is so difficult in this day and age, but always make certain that the lines of communication are open. Even if the person you're talking to says the most vile things in the world, he has the right to say them. And that's what makes America great. That is American exceptionalism.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing in these days is whether or not your speech can be regulated to the point where you lose liberty. We've seen many examples in just the past year where if you're not a United States citizen, and now even then we've seen citizen speech being cracked down upon. You can lose freedoms. One of the biggest ones is your freedom to travel. We've even seen people possibly looking at losing their citizenship. If you're here as a permanent resident, you could be denied citizenship, depending on what foreign policies you disagree with the current administration in this nation. And the sad part is now they want to even strip U.S. citizens of their passports for criticizing foreign policy under the guise of considering it support for terrorism by having disagreements over foreign policy in the Middle East. And ironically enough, it's Brian Mast that's sponsoring that bill. So this is some of the stuff coming out of DC right now that is very concerning for folks who are free speech advocates. But
I've been trying to get Congressman Mast on for some time. He keeps on ignoring me.
Well, if he goes back and look at some of the things I've said about him, I don't think he'll come on, but we'll see how it shakes out. So, but moving past that, we got our communications director, Katrina Pink, on with us this Sunday. Katrina, how are you doing today?
I'm just fine. Thanks for asking.
All right.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, and Katrina's our resident IT geek, so Pink is definitely there to help us out with everything we got going on and getting our message out to the community, and we appreciate your contributions to the organization. But, without further ado, we have some great guests joining us today to talk about some interesting topics that are going on in the state of Florida that's relevant to everyone in the medical cannabis space, especially patients. And that is the whole reason that we as an organization exist, is to advocate for the civil rights and look out for the protection of cannabis consumers. Number one, being in Florida, are medical cannabis patients. So, one of the things that I said in the opening speech that we gave when we founded this chapter was that you don't deserve to make 1 red cent in this industry if you don't put patients first. And I'm happy to introduce a gentleman who I know always puts patients first and has been on the ground since the get-go with us fighting. And that's Dr. Barry Gordon. Welcome, Dr. Gordon, back to the show.
Dr. Corey, woo!
So, and then next we have someone.
You're muted, Barry.
So, and now we have someone joining us in the rotation for the first time, the CEO and founder of My Florida Green, Nick Garulay. Nick, welcome to the rotation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we have all been here, myself and Barry and Chris, since the get-go, like you said, since before 2015 when we got the medical program, since before 2015 when we had a CBD only program, we were at the front line trying to make this happen. And I just want to throw one more thing out in regards to free speech that's concerned, is that let's not forget that one of the reasons that Nixon put through it was pushing hard on the Controlled Substance Act because he wanted to reduce the amount of rhetoric that was coming out of the anti-war movement. So that was a First Amendment suppression that was utilized cannabis as its foil, so to speak. And this continues to happen, and this is what we have to work on. But that said, let's have a little bit of history session here. We started out as a CBD only program, and the only way you're going to get that product is by going to a doctor and by verifying that you had a reason to take the medication, and therefore you were able to get it. And that was from the very beginning. And there was a situation as to who are going to be the doctors who are going to be giving out these recommendations. And then when we finally got the Amendment 2 to go through and we had medical, that a whole thing was set up in regards to medical cards, which, for people who don't remember it, went really, really slow at the very beginning. We were talking about 6 months on the average after you applied for the card before you actually got it. So if you had, 6 months to live, you never got a chance. That kind of situation. So
You actually, if I could interrupt you, Gary, you actually had
Yeah.
to have, you actually had, under the Compassionate Care Act, you had to have a 6-month relationship with your doctor before they could even register you with the Office of Compassionate, the Office of Compassionate Use, which is what it was called before the OMMU. And I was actually involved back then as well. It was actually disgraceful that people would die before they could even be registered, never mind certified.
And one of the problems we had at the very beginning, of course, is that they said doctors, along with having constraints that they could have no connection with the people who were making the cannabis and selling the cannabis, they weren't allowed to advertise. So how do you bring in patients? How do you make that connection between the patients and the doctors? Well, they had to seek you out. Well, Barry luckily had some notoriety at the very beginning, and people started coming to his clinic because they knew that was the place to go if you were in the Sarasota area. But what if you were in, say Naples? How do you go to? Where do you get to that? So Nick first came to me at a convention, I think it was in 2015 or so, over in Miami, and said, I got this great idea, a way of getting the doctors and the patients together. And I told him he was crazy, of course, but then again, he gets that a lot from a lot of people. Because anytime anybody has any kind of innovation, it's always looked at, with a bit of side eye. But so we went from that to people who are trying to create innovations to get the patients to the clinics, to Barry's clinic and to all the other clinics that first started out. And now we've got nearly 1 million patients, at least registered. I know a lot of them have dropped out because they didn't like the whole program in regards to the cards and things of that sort, or the fact that they still like the legacy market. But we still get the biggest medical market in the country. But we still have issues in regards to getting medical cards. And some folks have been taking shortcuts in regards to finding ways to get the doctors and the patients together. And it has to be done within the rules and regulations and the laws of the state of Florida. So here we have the situation. Now, Barry,
No, listen, thank God I was muted. I like my tongue was like bleeding. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just on a brief thing, when you first got your first patients, how did you come across them?
no, listen, we were lucky. Patty, my lovely wife, and I, when we established the clinic all the way back in January of 17. So January 3rd, actually, which was theoretically the first day that you could open a clinic, although there were a couple docs out there that were doing it earlier than us. But we literally had 400 patients waiting to see us. There was such a pent up desire and need to be safe, to be legal. We threw the education in there too, of course. But you got to remember all the way back in 17, it was an absolutely completely different landscape in the cannabinoid world than what we have now, in 2025. The hemp loophole market really didn't exist. We were earlier in the what I call the revolutionary phase, I think, of cannabis coming back into the public sector, and started out in California and out west and then spread. And, and here we are. I think we're now in the evolutionary phase, which is different. But there was pent up need, Gary. Patty and I, we still laugh about it. We work Saturdays, and we worked hard to get those 400 patients in the first month of the program. And we've never looked back. I like to say that being in the right place at the right time, and I credit Nick as well with this, being in the right place at the right time is important, but having the educational model and the patient practice and service model is what allows you to sustain. So both, quite frankly.
Nick, you saw a need, and you wanted to go ahead and use your background to fill it. Tell us about those early days in regards to where the genesis of your idea was and how you decided to go for it.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me on your show. Yeah, I'm a tech guy, so I'm a software tech guy. I created an aggregated platform to facilitate the medical marijuana certification for both the doctor and the patient, and basically handle all the nuances and the archaic rules and regulations and documentation and paperwork from beginning to end. We launched, or I launched my small little platform, which was a telemedicine platform, which I bought as a white label from another company. And we were certifying patients in November of 16, right after it passed. And it was super gray. I was competing with Doc MJ, and who was also doing telemedicine. I think they were able to capture like 40,000 patients before telemedicine was officially made illegal. Telemedicine was made illegal when the SB 8-A was signed into law, and there was a lot of doctors who were using telemedicine before then. But I planned on staying behind the Iron Curtain and licensing the software to all the doctors throughout the state. And then I quickly realized that most of the 2,000 plus doctors that were registered with the OMMU to certify for medical marijuana were not moving forward, or they were scared shitless because of the incredibly tetrifying rules and regulations that they put forth for the doctors. So, Barry Gordon was one of the lead roles. He taught a class for physicians. I actually worked with a couple of doctors after his class that he did. And they were the doctors that took Barry's class were the ones that were not only willing to move forward, but willing to move forward and place patients in other like kinder class. They weren't as scared because, Barry Gordon came up with, some not tactful ways to handle things, but just, legitimate ways to handle the other like kinder class, which he actually helped me build, the database that I have today. So I thank him for that. But, it's, I had to start my Florida Green. My company is actually the Doc app. That's the software that I built. And I had to start my Florida Green because I couldn't find doctors that were willing to move forward. Other than the shady ones, which, they still do exist today. But, finally found some doctors to work with, spearheaded the most conservative town and county in Florida, which is Naples, Florida, Collier County, and was able to kind of come out swinging just like Barry did up in Venice. So the early bird gets the worm, and combine that with timing and luck, but we now have 8 locations, 50,000 patients on our platform, and the most robust state compliant medical marijuana technology in existence. I have $3.5 million invested of my own money. Not saying that to show off, saying that because I drained all my bank accounts and savings and obviously risked my freedom and liberty to start this company. And I wouldn't do it again, to say the least. But I'm in it pretty deep now, and that'll segue into the conversation of the scumbag criminal type groups that come into this state from out of state, and think that they're going to leverage all the hard work that people like me and Barry Gordon have put forward, and take over and take advantage, just as a money grab, while they pretend that they are for the patient, when it is clear and blatant that they are not.
Now, I came across the Anti-Brokering Act many, many years ago, back in the 1990s, when I was working for the Centers for Disease Control, and there were actually people within the industry, within the medical clinic framework, that were finding people who were having drug problems. And this is before HIPAA. This is just before HIPAA. And they were moving people to these rehab clinics and getting a kickback from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when they said, look, you cannot broker patients. You can't have doctors go ahead and pay for leads to bring patients in. It's against the law in the state of Florida. And when you first told me about your plan, my first thought was, how are you going to get around that?
Mm-hmm.
Because in fact, number one, according to the law, you can't have a doctor have any kind of physical connection to an MMTC or to a compassionate care clinic, whatever it was at that point in time. It's just not legal. And yet we had a doctor who was in one of the people who was running the FMMC, whatever it was, convention, that was actually sharing a building with a MMTC and actually having them pay him rent.
Justin?
Alando.
Okay. Well, there was another one, Davis, too. Justin Davis was he was one of the doctors that got busted. He was working out of True Leaf, out of one of their locations, certifying patients.
And that went straight against that whole idea that you can't have any kind of direct or indirect connection to the clinic as far as bringing in money. And yet you have doctors who have MMTCs paying them rent to get in there. And that of course is the MMTC. The MMTC is now called Fluent. That was involved. So how did your particular software get around the idea that you're not actually brokering patients, to having doctors pay to get new patients in?
So again, we're a software. We're an aggregative software, and we license the software to the doctor. And there is definitely some creative ways that we've structured the relationship. But I have an attorney that works for me full time. He is on payroll. He is our in-house corporate counsel. So we've gone through the law step by step, dotted all of our I's, crossed our T's. And there's no way that anybody could peg me for patient brokering. But Buy Florida Green is a DBA. So that's the front end aggregator. That's the website. People land on the website. They click get started. They create a profile under that physician, and the patient belongs to the physician. They start it as that and always remain as that. I think it's entertaining how some of these practices think that they own the patient. Nobody owns the patient other than the doctor. The doctor-patient relationship remains the same. And yeah, so I mean, I think that's a funny question to ask me, Gary, because we should be talking about leaf well, which is why I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I wanted to circle back to the extent of the Dr. Justin Davis and Joe Dorn, going all the way back to those two cases. And it's going to segue right into what I know Nick is going to talk about. What we have in Florida, unfortunately, is a problem with how anybody's practice and legitimacy and whether they're following the state required, all the regulations. And that's one of the things that keeps doctors out, quite frankly. Nick knows this, is the unbelievably burdensome paperwork, that the states, put in the way. But the point is that what those early cases pointed out is what we know now, is that the OMU itself is essentially, I'm looking for the right word, impotent, let's put it that way, in their ability to regulate over these practices.
You came across a whole bunch of doctors who, as Nick was calling them, the bad dudes, the ones who were trying to
the point is, the
laws
OMU
and things of
can't
that sort.
regulate them, Gare, and they've told us this over and over again. They need to refer them to the Board of Medicine, okay, and that's a years long process, and very frustrating to that extent. Their oversight over the business aspect of the practices is extremely speculative, and there's history to this. We had one particularly bad actor all during COVID advertise on the radio over and over again. And, many people know this. I still have the ads on my phone. Don't leave your dirty doctor office, or don't leave your clean living room for the dirty doctor office. We'll do your certification online. And literally thousands and thousands of patients were put into the program illegitimately. Fortunately, none of the patients ever lost their recommendations, and I'm thrilled for that. But the company involved, rumor was they were suspended, they were fined, and this and that. But quite frankly, never were. And I'm just going to let Nick go forward with Leafwell, but I just want to leave it at this. Leafwell advertises themselves as a telehealth company, okay, a national telehealth cannabis providing company. They've bent their model literally to come into Florida by having these pop-up events so they can have a doctor, quote unquote, encounter with the patient. That's not their model anywhere else in the country, to the best of my knowledge. They once again advertise themselves as a telehealth service. We don't allow telehealth in Florida for initial patient visits. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. What comes down ultimately from this, and I salute Nick for this, and I appreciate his efforts, is that sometimes you have to go outside of the state's regulatory system and go to the courts to get some injunctive relief. So I set the ball up on the tee.
I mean, I've been hearing you talk about Leafwell for years now, Barry. Literally,
originally, I remember getting come-ons from various companies that would refer patients to me, unbeknownst to me even knowing that they were referring them to me, and they took money already from that patient. Wow. And Nick, I know you remember those all the way out there garbage players who offered nothing but what the OMU itself offered if the patient would just go on and look for a physician. Yep. So early on, you had these quote unquote referral services that did nothing but give a patient my name. And they wanted me to sign up with them. And I said, what are you talking about? But it went on. So since then, there have been various derivations of whack-a-moles, quite frankly. And in some ways, Leafwell is just the latest version of the whack-a-moles, but they're very dangerous because they're big, they're national. And like I said, I'm going to, let Nick speak to it a little bit, more because, he's done a lot more investigation into this particular entity than I.
Around the very first time I actually came across Leafwell in the person was when I stopped by Dab Day, and I saw that there was a booth there with a line that went all the way around the entire event. I'm saying, what is so great about this one booth that they are getting most of the people who are here to stand in line that goes, 60, 70 people long. And that's because I hear they're giving away free medical cards. I said, free medical cards. I mean, they're paying the $75. It's no, free medical cards. As in, you don't have to pay anything to the doctor up front. And you'll have your card before you leave this event. I'm saying, what in the world are they talking about?
That in itself is illegal. You can't offer certifications for free. You can do charitable stuff, but you can't offer in mass for free. So just that in itself is illegal.
We're going to get into the nonprofit situation in just a minute, but Nick, if you could, because you know so much about them, give us the evolution of Leafwell and how they ended up getting here to Florida and what they did in the past.
Well, like Barry said, they are a nationwide company. They are claimed they claim themselves to be a telemedicine company. The CEO, Emily Fisher, has been wrapped up in litigation in multiple states, 2 in Florida, in California, all public record. And one particular case is where she actually is accused of stealing the telemedicine technology from a doctor who she was working with in California. So I found that one interesting. And there's multiple states and multiple lawsuits against her personally, as well as other shell corp companies that she has going on. So this woman is known for doing, in my opinion, shady types of business practices.
You're talking about Emily, right?
Emily, correct. Emily Fisher. Yeah. So who's from England, by the way. So they are a multi-state operator. They work with the multi-state dispensaries as well, which kind of got them a foot in the door. And they do these pop-up events in other medical states as well. But ironically, Florida is the only one they do the events and the certifications for free. Okay, so, and I found that kind of interesting. So then you dig a little deeper. How are they certifying 500 people at an Orlando event for free? Well, you dig a little deeper and you understand the financials behind that, because nobody works for free unless it is a charitable, type of organization. We do a lot of stuff for veterans. We recertify our veterans for free. We'll charge them once because we have to charge them a nominal fee, and then all their 7-month follow-ups are free on us moving forward. We have 8,700 veterans on our platform out of the 50,000, so that's almost, it's 18%. So that's a charitable, event that we do to try to reduce the 22 suicides per day. And again, I'm not trying to self-promote here. I'm just trying to explain the difference. But what how they're funding these events is the dispensaries are actually sponsoring them, and the dispensaries sponsor them for some exclusivity for the patients to be segued into that dispensary, and that is illegal. Okay, so you have the dispensaries are, even though there's a corporate veil there, which is very easy to pierce, you have the dispensaries are funding the patient certification, which now you have a doctor basically certifying for dispensaries. That goes all the way back, Gary, to, the issues that you brought up from the beginning back in the day of patient brokering. You also have violation of Privacy Act, because the other issue with the dispensary sponsoring the events, because that could be gray. You could litigate out of that one, okay? Especially if you're a good attorney or you have good attorneys. But here's where it gets really sticky. Part of the agreement between LeafWell and the dispensaries is the dispensaries have to email blast and text message all of their patients that are on their platform. That is called unfair and deceptive trade. Now, if anybody follows me, they know I got a big boat with a big pot leaf on the side of it with my branding on it. I got a big Mercedes Sprinter with all my branding on it. That's fair marketing. I have the money to do that. I bought that stuff. I branded it, and I'm a guerrilla marketer. Okay, kudos to me, whatever. But that's called fair marketing. If the dispensaries paid for that boat, paid for that Sprinter, and paid for the wraps that went on that, that would be unfair and deceptive trade. That gives me an advantage. So what these dispensaries are doing is they're marketing to people that me and Barry have facilitated to go into those dispensaries. They're marketing to those people, which is an unfair advantage, okay? And they're basically taking patients from legitimate platforms and putting them on an illegitimate platform. Now, that's my opinion that they're an illegitimate platform. Why? Because they're breaking the law, right? They're breaking multiple laws. And we're not talking about like little laws. We're talking 4 or 5 felonies in conjunction with violating SB 8-A, which was signed by Rick Scott back in June of 2017. So we have a problem, and we got a big problem. These people have done tens of thousands of patients. I have seen a reduction in my business out of eight locations with the different doctors that we work with of 51%. That's half of my business has gone to shit because you have this wannabe tech company that comes in and commits fraud, in my opinion, right? Aggregates massive amounts of patients through these hotel events. These patients don't even know what the fuck is going on? And the doctor that works for these for these events has no idea what the fuck's going on either. So you have the doctor and the patient are shoved through this funnel, and then you have these tens of thousands of patients that are now on their database. And what do? They certify for 4 months and 20 days, 420, which is also insulting. And then they reach out and say, hey, you got to do a telemedicine for $99. So all this is a patient grab and a money grab. And what about the 78-year-old Parkinson's patient that shows up at one of these events that was lured in for this free certification, or this person that's on a fixed income? Or what about the veterans? All these people are shoved into this funnel and they're not being taken care of. If you Google LeafWell, if you go on their Facebook and you start looking at their reviews, you'll literally see people complaining about how they were taken advantage of, how they were shoved into this funnel, how they have medical questions that aren't getting answered, how they haven't been certified. They've been waiting for 6 months, So, when you're feeding off of the bottom and trying to take advantage of people, low-income people, that's just a recipe for disaster. And this entire platform is going to implode. In fact, they're going to make sure it does.
Now, like I said, at the very beginning, we had people who were waiting on the average of 6 months to get their medical card after they first saw the doctor, after they paid the doctor for their initial visit, and they had to wait 6 months before they actually got a card in their hands so before they could make purchase one. And Barry, I think you can say for a fact that patient retention has a lot to do with brand loyalty, and that's what comes down to marketing. And did you have a lot of patients who, obviously, during the last election, we found out that the economy is very important to people, and that people have less spendable income. So, do you find the financial aspect going up against brand loyalty as far as people staying with the same doctors?
Listen, what Nick speaks to is so important, because it's the quality of the medical program that we've worked so hard on over these years, and just the thought of an all-comers event, okay, with a line snaking around, the event, and you could talk low income, you could talk high income. But to me, people that are attracted to that type of come on an event are those people that, are just looking for an easy route, quite frankly, to
A quick come up
explore.
is what we call it, a quick come up.
For sure. And the 4 months and 20 days. Listen, it's a complicated process to get into the program. If you want more, flour, for example, there's a process called the RFE, request for exemption. There's articles that we're required to send to the state, and Nick, thanks so much for recognizing me for what I really think has been my contribution to this state's program. And I mean it. I'm not the smartest tack in the box. You and I laugh about the ability of the doctor to be businessman and everything. And, we laugh about it together. But early on, what I learned was that it's the safety side, right, of our cannabis. I call it the cannabinoid umbrella these days, because to even talk about Delta-9 THC in the smokable form, okay, is so old school anymore, and it just confuses things. In this cannabinoid, umbrella environment, there is fentanyl, okay, in the cannabis supply. Fortunately, it's rare, but it happens, and we do have this entire gray market, as I call it now, of, smoke shop and, God forbid, gas station products. And, and the issue with that market is in the testing. The testing is abysmal, and the education that's delivered, in those type of environments surely is not a medicinal environment. And this continues to be a medical program. And we need to continue to show our leaders, our legislators, those who are going to craft policy as we go forward, that we're taking this program seriously. And that's why I get so agitated many times by the advocates' loss of vision, to the extent of the importance of the people that have been out there for 8, now going on 9 years, who are going to continue to be here as we go forward to ensure that we continue to have high quality medicinal cannabis available to our citizens in Florida. Whatever goes on with legal adult use as we go forward, and everybody knows I'm the Amendment 3 advocate here, to that extent, because I'm the ER doctor. Public health, public education, public safety is always going to be my primary goal. But we're going to have to preserve our medical program as we go forward. And there's value in that. There's value in that. So anybody that says that they're a cannabis advocate and they really respect the plant and they want to see progress moving forward, if they don't support the medical program and those legitimate practices that have laid the groundwork and are going to continue to work hard to make sure that everybody has the appropriate products here available in Florida, be they medicinal or be they legal adult use. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get that from a free card event. I'm sorry.
We have a state from the very beginning, which has always said that we have to have a robust regulatory system. That they came straight from that memo back in the Bush era, in the Obama era, rather. And that's what they did. They created a robust regulatory framework that we have to deal with on a daily basis to make this program go forward. And yet we have, like I said, the largest medical program, and in part because it is still the mainstay of the program, whereas other people have segued onto adult use markets or recreational markets, if you will.
Listen, that's why LeafWell wants in, Gary. I mean, it's not like we have, we are, and let's talk to the MMTCs on this as well, Nick. And, you haven't really gone there yet, but one of the biggest issues, quite frankly, for me, and I want to say something else. Listen, Nick Garulay and I are on this show as completely opposites to the extent of our business model. And I hope people appreciate that and respect that. And Nick and I have cobbled our relationship through the years, to the extent of both knowing that we're out here for the benefit of the patient. We may have a little bit different philosophies on how we go about it, but I think we're both here to offer legitimate, high-quality medical practices that are going to be there to answer our patients' questions when they have them, to continue to offer the most seamless route through the paperwork, that's required in the Florida program, and continue to work for the benefit of our patients as we go forward,
Right.
Katrina, you have a question?
We're opposite sides of the business coin here, but we both see the disaster in this.
Dr. Barry, Katrina has a question for you. Pink, what's your question for Dr. Barry?
Really quick, Dr. Barry, as an advocate and also a patient, when you said something about you feel like a lot of advocates, we're out here and we're pretty confused, like what kind of advice can you give based off of what it is, how you look at it, your POV of it? Like, how can you help most of us not be confused? What is it can we really say to someone who really have no idea why we go so hard for this, for the patients like myself, you and others? How can you help us not be so confused? Because that's what I think as well. So I totally agree. It's a lot of discrepancy. It's worse than politics. But what first thing would you say to me had I not had no idea on even why this is happening or what?
Well, no, I mean, to me, I always kind of make things as simple as I can. And I like to say respect the patient and respect the plant, right? And to me, respecting the patient means that you follow the law, you educate the patient, you make sure that your practice is compliant, so your patient is never at risk of not having their orders in place. We do a couple things that are unique in my clinic. We have free follow-up. And Nick, thank you for your care of the veterans. Absolutely. We have free follow-up in my clinic for any patient in between the 210-day cycles. Can always reach out to my clinic with any question about medical cannabis products, God forbid, new diagnosis, right? The OMU messes up an order. You want more of a certain type of product. Sometimes we have to manipulate the orders for the benefit of the patient. Those things only happen when you have a quality environment, quite frankly, in a true medical practice that you're involved in. So, just to make it simple, I like to say everybody serves beef from Burger King all the way up to Prime Steakhouse. And I like to think that my clinic's environment is the Prime Steakhouse environment. So you can go to Burger King if you want, you
I
know.
get it.
But hang on, but like things like the 4 month and 20 days worth of orders, okay? Patients don't know about Florida's program, that it's a
Right.
210-day rotation, right? So that free card isn't actually, going to end up being free. Theoretically, the doctors for that particular event, okay, have to do the telehealth follow-up on that patient to be within the true quote unquote, 100% following of the Florida rules,
Right.
All right,
and I
so
guarantee you that's not, going on,
I have a
whether
question for
E-Force,
Nick. Too.
go ahead, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
just the quality of the visit,
Quality.
is the
Okay,
key.
it's quality over quantity.
Quality.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. All right, understandable.
No,
And
no,
really
listen,
quick here.
and the getting of the card is one thing. And here's my point, and I'll make it quickly. We have patients, and I know Nick does too, and he alluded to the, patient in their 80s with Parkinson's, and we call them the Doobie One patient. Patient's never done cannabis, can't believe they're in your clinic, scared, can't, the whole bit.
Right.
And they deserve a certain type of education. But here's the key. The Doobie 3 cannabis consumer and the Doobie 4, the everyday cannabis consumer, they deserve education
Right.
too, right?
Correct.
It's a different education. One of my favorite lines is when I look at my Doobie 3, Doobie 4 patients and literally tell them, you're not 18 anymore, right? So you need to be a better cannabis consumer. You
Right.
need to know about the CBD and the
Understand
other
it.
cannabinoids. All of them, okay, want to know about the other routes of administration because many of them don't want to inhale or smoke anything anymore. So there's value in every visit,
Right.
And I think it's ironic too, and I can't wait to hear anybody's comment about this, and I almost hate to go there. It bugs me almost to a certain extent more that many of these people that are standing in line for the free card are so anti-MSO, multi-state operator, so anti, big cannabis, want the home grow option, which I've always advocated for, okay? All these reforms, but yet I don't think they know that they're standing in line, okay, to have a free card financed by those same MSOs that they speak against. And
yeah,
and
that's
that's
the
something that I
problem.
just kind of thought of yesterday that was so very interesting to me. So Nick, I applaud you for really bringing this all out into the open, to that extent of that connection between the MMTCs and these practices, to the extent of whatever their quality may be or not. Okay, that can listen. When Patty had her powwow with Patty and the Patty page early on, we gave it up because we didn't want to even start to advertise out to the MMTCs to start to finance the Patty page because she was my wife. So we've all made decisions through the years that have tried to follow, the OMU's rules. But, Nick, I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more of that because I know you've also had a lot of consternation to the extent of what's gone on with the OMU and things that we've reported in the past that haven't been acted on and literally their inability to regulate our biz.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously we've got a bad actor here in regards to Leafwell because their practice is lacking. It's lacking in actual physician contact, and it's lacking in the fact that they're not following the rules and regulations. So, Nick, you decided to come to a way of getting the bad actor out, since it seems like the free market doesn't even seem to be doing it at this point in time, and you have
Yeah,
filed a lawsuit
it's just like
against
my question.
Leafwell.
And to piggyback
So,
off of really quick before you answer, I'm sorry, Gary. Hold your
all
thought
right, go
really
ahead.
quick. Just to piggyback off of Gary, Nick, um, like with the whole fraud and the people out here just copywriting and trying to get things the easy way. What other promos have you come up with to go around what they're doing, if any? Does that make sense? You know,
To go around what they're doing,
like
like
okay, when you say a lot of people are out here doing fraud, they're doing it the easy way when you're doing it from the muscle. What other promo um ways or scrutinization have you come up with? You know what I
well,
mean? Like, oh, to
it's
go
not.
around their fraudulent activities.
Well, I believe the word is gimmick, and that's really kind of what Leafwell is it's a giant gimmick, and a patient
Some call
grab.
it marketing.
Yeah, well, but it's not. I mean, marketing is putting up billboards, all right,
Right.
which
What you're doing on your cars and
we-
stuff. Right.
yeah, we have billboards up. We have search engine optimization. I have a budget of $20,000 a month for my search engine optimization for organic. I don't do pay per clicks, but we have a robust technology. I mean, that's my edge. I mean, every patient leaves with our app on their phone, right? You get your 7-month expiration date with explanation on what that is. You get your card expiration here, right? I got a direct link into the how many milligrams are left for each patient. They can log in right into their OMMU there. I got a dispensary locator here. So this is my competitive edge, is the $3.5 million I've invested building the most robust technology platform for patients. And any patients can download this app. They don't have to be part of My Florida Green. So it's called the Doc app. It's THEDOCAPP, the Doc app. We do the discounts here. They're loaded in every day and they do expire. These are all the discounts from the dispensaries that are available. So it does cost you $30 a year to have the app if you're not a My Florida Green patient. And again, not necessarily a plug-in there, but yeah, we filed a 55-page lawsuit with an injunction, request for an injunction last week against Leafwell. I served Emily and her corporate counsel cease and desist 2 weeks prior to that. No response to either one. In fact, they actually they geared up and fired up and got even more aggressive with their marketing, kind of, in my opinion, as like a big FU. And what, the trick up the sleeve that's about to come out, which is not going to go well for Leafwell, is the formal complaint to the Attorney General, who, by the way, is not happy about this. So, and then we're going to go through the Department of Health, and then we're going to go to the OMMU. And I'm saving the OMMU for last. And the reason why is because I've gotten zero response from the OMMU with any other complaints that we've ever filed. I'm sure Barry can attest to that. And, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can I attest to that? What does OMMU stand for?
Office of Medical Marijuana Use. So that is the office. That is the office that is tasked with regulating the physicians, as well as the MMTCs. More the MMTCs. The physicians, like Barry said, is the Board of Medicine, but this is a scary, taboo, subject, for the Board of Medicine. The only doctors that they've gone after, have essentially won the cases against, or have essentially defended themselves and won, with any kind of activity from the OMMU, or enforcement, I should say. The question is like, who's at the helm? Who's running the OMMU? Right. And they keep changing directors. They keep changing employees. The turnover rate with the OMMU is worse than the bud tenders at the dispensaries themselves. Right. And then you try to talk to people at the OMMU, and you're talking to people equal to customer service at Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's insulting. And then yet they're getting $77 million a year, right? Gary mentioned that we got 1 million patients times $77. That's simple math. They're getting $77 million a year. Where the fuck is that money going?
Where is it going? Absolutely.
Right. So,
Absolutely.
So we found a novel approach to go ahead and sue them. My first question is, all these laws have been in place, the Anti-Brokering Act and things of that sort. Yep. Those have been in place. Why hasn't this gone to the Attorney General's office during the entire time that Ashley Moody was in there? Because this didn't just start last week. This has been going on for years now. Since their first incursion in Florida, it was like, I think it was 2020, 2021, when Leafwell came on the scene.
Well, no, Leafwell just came on the scene with Florida in 24.
24, okay.
2023 they filed as a corporation, and they fired up really for these events in 25 actually. So, but they've been established, nationwide. But regardless, this woman Emily touts and brags through press releases that they've generated $27 million in revenue, and that they've certified 50,000 patients just in Florida. And you can find all these articles, like they're literally bragging and touting and advertising that they're blatantly breaking the law, right? At least in Florida, you have physician groups that have kind of quasi gone after her and the company in New York. Barry and I found an article up there with a group of physicians, but it was more of complaining about the quality of care, right? and that's irrelevant at this point. It's really the unfair and deceptive trade is really what gets me, or is at the top of the totem pole for me, because you have these MMTCs, aka dispensaries, that we have been supporting financially by funneling patients through, not exclusively, but as a mass. They have their representatives that come out. They come out, and there's no relationship there, because they turn worse than the OMMU as far as their representatives, other than I think Move is like the last one standing, that's Seth, but for our area anyway. But you have these representatives that come out, kind of like how the pharmaceutical companies used to do. They kind of butter up the doctors the best way that they can without buying them anything. Once in a while, they'll buy the office lunch or whatever. They'll drop off their marketing materials. And, they're doing their best, but they don't do the best job. Unfortunately, they don't have, the budget to do it. But then all of a sudden you have somebody coming in saying, hey, we're going to do something illegal, and you guys are going to fund it, but you guys are also going to facilitate it. And I just don't understand, like, each dispensary has to have in-house corporate counsel as well. So where did this seem like it was a good idea? And I think really, if you rise up 10,000 feet and look at this from above, everybody's desperate for business right now, especially the dispensaries. The dispensaries, their market share, is diminishing, especially with more and more dispensaries coming out. They're marketing the hell out of discounts when they should just lower the fucking prices. All of them, just lower the prices, make it an even playing field for everybody else, so that everybody can just choose which dispensary to go to, and then market to the patient about how your flower is better than everybody else's, and about how your oil is better than everybody else's. But instead they get all these like weird discount nonsense marketing plays that they're doing that are just ineffective, in my opinion. But this illegal activity is something that's gonna definitely rattle the market too. I'm empathetic to the dispensaries that have participated in this, because they're going to get roped into this, and it's going to be very unfortunate. If I was a competitor, I'm not going to mention any names, but if I was a competitor and there are several dispensaries that have not participated, in these illegal, events, I would sit back. I would actually try to join this lawsuit if I was an MMTC. That did not participate. Absolutely. I would try to join this lawsuit, and I would sit back and put my feet up and just watch the house of cards fall, because, if and when the shit hits the fan, shit's going to go everywhere. And I don't mean to
I just want to have my umbrella. I just want to block that shit, because I don't like shit.
Well, I mean,
I don't like being that type of shit that I can't get out of.
I don't mean to paint that shitty picture, but I mean,
I want to just be out the way, but I still want to be bad like this,
It's really going to be unfortunate for these MMTCs, because they're clearly breaking the law, and and they've worked so hard to follow all the rules and regulations that the OMMU's put together, and that's the other thing that's insulting for people like me and Barry is we've worked so hard and followed these extremely archaic rules and regulations that are put in place, but no one's enforcing them. So if this company can come in and take over and put us out of business, well, I mean, I'm not going to sit and let that happen, and I know it, and from a doctor's perspective, really the doctors, can bitch about it, right, and complain about it, scream about it, but they're not going to financially invest into this, because they don't know where to go and how to do it, right? I mean, I have a legal team, I have a private investigative team, I have resources available to me that aren't really available to the general public, right? I can run background checks on people very quickly, and I can I won't get into all the dirty details, but I have people that are involved with me that are ex-military, ex-Secret Service, and this isn't something that I'm going to play with. This is something that I'm going to be extremely aggressive with, and not only am I going to stop this, I'm going to take these people down.
Yeah, I'll be a part of it too. So
I helped. I helped the guy who filed the lawsuit for home grow here in the state of Florida, and it was known as the Flora grown case. And I asked him, why are you doing this? I mean, why you in particular? Are you taking on this massive case to try to break down the entire situation, to break that, to allow home grow and to break down the vertical so that more people can get into the business, including Flora Grown? You said, because I can actually afford to sue,
Mhm.
and so therefore it's my obligation to be able to do so. Yeah, I'm going to
Money
profit in the
talks,
end,
bullshit
but I won't be
walks.
the only one.
Yeah.
Money talks, bullshit walks sometimes.
Yeah, well, listen, a shout out to Joe Redner, and I was a proud member of that team as well, Garrett, of course, Listen, it's such a critical time for cannabis right now. That's why, we need to pay attention. And, we're coming into the legislative session season again with committee, week starting in October. And, who knows what's going to come down, in this year's legislative session, whether they're going to, go after the hemp, side of the scene again. We have the national discussion with Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. Nick, of course, had his own special involvement with that. Who knows what's going to come down at the national level. So as I tell everybody, the only 100% thing that we know for sure is the inevitability of change, right? And to me, we need to maintain our lane as the medical side of it and insist upon what I call 1P, 2Qs, 2Rs, price, no taxes, higher quality of product than what's available on the recreational side, more quantity than what may be available on the recreational side for our medical patients. And then the 2Rs, more research, more research, more research. And then, of course, the reforms that we're all going to want. Listen, one would think that medical card holders should get the right to home grow
Right.
first. I mean, I want
That's
it
what
for
I, yeah,
everybody, and I've gone to court for
that's
that. But one would think that medical card holders first.
right.
Protection in the workplace environment, Gary. I don't have to talk to you about that. That's been your main issue, as mine,
Right.
and it'll be my main issue until I get out of this space.
Platforms.
Protection in the nursing home and hospital environment, expungements and social equity issues. Okay, travel with your cannabis. Okay, the biggest question I get in my clinic these days is, what can I take onto the cruise ship? Okay, because people are taking gummies for sleep these days. Many elderly people going
It's
on
true.
cruises, and the answer is easy: nothing. There's a
At
don't
all.
ask, don't tell, but legally nothing. And these are issues that may take 5, 10, 15 years, okay, to wrap up. And you need to have the appropriate advocates out there that are looking out for the interests of patients, citizens, and not the bottom line. And that's my soapbox. That's why we need to maintain medical. Medical's kind of been. I'm gonna leave it at this, and I'll shut up. Medical's been kind of the useful idiot, okay, of the legalization movement. We know that. It was a foot in the door. It was a way to get established. And now look how far we've come. All the states with medical, the legal adult use states too. Look how far we've come. But my point is, you can't leave medical behind on the way to legal adult use, because what we found out, and I know Nick will attest to this, it's what keeps him as passionate as we are. Cannabis is unbelievable medicine. Unbelievable medicine. It works. It works. And we need more research. And Nick, I salute you for being out on the plank. Me too. I'm not going to wait for research, okay, of 10 or 15 years down the pike to tell me what I know already, which is that cannabis is unbelievable medicine. So we can't leave research behind, okay, as we go forward with legal adult use. But the reforms are the last star. So 1P, 2Qs, 2Rs. I'm going to set up that platform, that plank. I'm going to walk it all the way out, and I'm going to go in Tallahassee. And listen, I want to say one other thing, and I will shut up. Senator Ralph Mazzullo, Representative Ralph Mazzullo, and Gary, you could speak to this.
He's running for senator in my district, by the way.
Dr. Representative Ralph Mazzullo is now running for Senate in the special Senate election runoff because of the Angolia seat.
Yep.
And I reached out to Dr. Mazzullo. I donated to his campaign. And, Nick, you can laugh at me because, I'm on the other side on most issues. But when it comes to cannabis policy, and Mazzullo's going to win that seat. Senator Ralph Mazzullo and Senator Tracy Davis, okay, will be the two most important people in the Senate, and we should want to have them on our side. So if there's anything you could proactively do today, reach out to Ralph Mazzullo and donate to his campaign and tell him that you're interested in him being a champion for medical cannabis and cannabis policy. And that's how good things happen in Florida.
Gary, can we put the information up somewhere? I want to look into it.
I think that Chris has that.
Okay.
We can go
And
ahead
listen,
and
he's
get that.
not perfect, but he's come along greatly. And as a physician, in the Senate, he's going to be very, very important. And he started out over here on cannabis policy, and he's over here now. And I know as we go forward, he can be a very important player in the Senate.
And I know this is the end of the show, but really quick, fellas. This is for everybody, okay? Do you guys think the vapes were just a distraction to get in our way, like the advocates and the doctors and what do you guys think about these vapes?
I was asked on a podcast. I was asked on a podcast on Friday, and I want to give a shout out to Florida Can and Cynthia and Jody. They do a nice job, and Gary, you guys too. And I'm not going to get through this podcast without continuing to salute the rotation, and I mean for continuing to do. I had the green room, I had my podcast. It's hard to do this every week. But my point is, I had a chance to address, a lot of these issues. And I think it's important that we continue to do that because of how important a time it is to pay attention. If you don't pay attention, then things don't get done and then we get run over. So once again, Nick, I salute you for taking the time and money and effort, to really try to bring these issues to the fore. It has to happen.
Okay, Nick. So you filed the lawsuit. They've had it in their hands for 2 weeks. Do they have a deadline for their briefing?
Well, there is a separate filing for injunctive relief. There's another filing for an injunction, an emergency injunction, which I put the bond up for as well. So, we're going at them at all angles. So, the subpoenas have gone out, and these people are going to continue to try to grab as much money as they can before they're literally shut down. And you can kind of see it as it's projecting, and unfolding, and it's really sad because if I received the demand letter from them, I would have responded immediately, right? They didn't respond at all. And then if I received a lawsuit or even heard rumors of a lawsuit, I would get in front of that immediately. And I certainly would not want to read the lawsuit that we have filed because it is nasty on all
exhibits, but they're all very pretty, so they're easy to get through. At the legalese wasn't too hard. If anybody wants to go ahead and view it, I mean, we could put it up on our website, so you can go ahead and go ahead and read the document and see what exactly going on, especially if you can read legalese, which is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, it's public record. We just did a press release on the My Florida Green Facebook page as well, talking about it. But things are going to get very spicy and juicy here in the next 7 to 10 days, especially with the Attorney General, which we're excited about as well. I feel for the people working at the OMMU. I really do, because you've had advocates that have been in this from the beginning, like me and Barry Gordon. And there's others out there as well, without naming names, who have reached out to the OMMU. I demoed our software and platform for Chris and their entire legal team with the OMMU back in November. We were supposed to reconvene after the holiday, we have a platform that literally bridges the gap between the doctor, the patient, and the state and the MMTC, where we can document and aggregate data showing products that work, products that don't. We can do bulletins for recalls on tainted products, through the app, right? I mean, we have 50,000 patients on My Florida Green, but we have over 10,000 non-MFG patients that now have the app on their phone too. And that's really our goal, is to get the app on everybody's smartphone so that they can have access to the data as well as track their, expiration dates and dispensary discounts, and then backdoor and potentially have doctors use our EMR aspect of it so they can stay connected, but this isn't a marketing play, even though it might sound like it is, but this is really, I can't sit. And on behalf of the doctors, even my competitors, right? I can't sit on my hands and just watch this real low level attempt to grab the market and put them all on one platform. And these people become, in an unregulated scenario, they become, the biggest in the state. There's a couple other bad actors too that do shady stuff, as well, with buses in the parking lots of the dispensaries, but at least that's, an encounter. At least there's a doctor-patient interaction, right? There's a doctor sitting on that bus, or at least there should be, right? But at least there's an encounter, and the doctor can answer medical questions, and there's a relationship there. But we're gonna go after them too. So just if they're watching, be advised that we're coming for you too. If the people that are in power are going to be incompetent and not police and enforce the rules and regulations that were set forth and signed into law, like we have to follow, then we're going to enforce it for them. So, just buckle up, everybody, because this is going to get very interesting. It's going to be fun to watch. And I'm looking forward to justice being served, and I hope it's served cold.
Absolutely. Now this is a civil suit. However, what we're talking about is issues that are actually criminal. Now, I would have loved for it to have been criminal, have criminal action taken forth first, but it doesn't seem to be happening. They seem to want to sit back and change the regulations to make things harder behind closed doors, as to being upfront and saying this is a criminal issue, let's follow it criminally. But if your public issue, if your civil issue works as a conduit for change, I'm all for it.
Okay, well, let me explain something to you and be very clear with this, and then I'll give you a scenario and an example. Criminal is going to take years of investigation. These people are going to clean house while that happens. I know that's what I would do, right? They're going to clean house, and then the potential of criminal, injunction and liability is going to be years down the road, right? And they've already taken over, right? Let me give you an example that I'm sure we all know this name, okay? P. Diddy. P. Diddy's criminal, even though, it shook out in a very, way in favor of him. He walked, but P. Diddy's criminal, cases actually morphed out of civil. So it started as a civil case first, right? A civil lawsuit, which morphed into criminal because of the discovery process. So there's going to be the subpoenas, there's going to be, injunctions, there's going to be discovery. Every document that goes between the dispensary and Leafwell is going to come to light. Every document, and it's going to be public record. So, the fact that these people haven't called me begging to settle is hilarious, right? But obviously that's not something that I'm looking for anyway. These people have a shitstorm ahead of them, and they better have a whole box of cleanup, a Clorox cleanup ready to go, because there's a lot of shit that's going to come out on this, and it's going to come out through discovery. And that's the part that I'm looking forward to. I have a legal team that doesn't look at the clock. They're going to have to hire a legal team that does, and that is going to get very expensive for them as well. And if you're going to sit here and commit felonies and break the law and try to put me out of business, well, I'm this entrepreneur software guy with a wallet, and I'm going to come back fighting, and I'll do it and represent all the other medical marijuana doctors in the process, and make sure that, that the people that are doing things the right way can continue to do things the right way and serve the people that are in need, which are the patients who are suffering from debilitating conditions. We pass this as a constitutional amendment, right? Any state or government funded agency that violates a patient's access is actually violating their constitutional right. This is their constitutional right to have access to medical marijuana. And these people are trying to take advantage of that.
This is what I'd like to see as far as the media spin or the zeitgeist, as far as this is concerned, is that people understand the importance of the educational aspect of why you have to go in front of a doctor to get a medical card in the first place, because this is medicine. And with
Right.
any medicine, you have the doctor who's supposed to explain what the medicine is and how it does. And of course, in the real world, in the pharmaceutical world, the pharmacist is always that last person you have that can explain your medicine to you, the pros and the cons, and how you should be taking it, things of that sort. You go to MMTC and you don't get that information. It comes
No.
back to what happens to the doctor. And I hope that because of the fact that it seems that Leafwell is taking that aspect out of the whole process, that what happens, what goes on with it with this lawsuit brings that to light. And I hope that'll happen forward. Now, Chris, I know you wanted to say something. I know you've been quiet all this time, and I've been talking too much.
Well, I just want to close us out. You know, we're here at the top of that news hour, and really just say thank you to Nick Garulay and what you've built at My Florida Green in connecting doctors and patients. Thank you to Dr. Barry Gordon for really being a trailblazer and stepping up to defend the patient's rights in this system. I mean, you were the doctor certifying Joe Redner to sue for home grow in this state. The Florida Supreme Court felt otherwise, but the fact is that bad things happen when good people stay silent. And so this is an opportunity now for good people to step up and really point out the bad actors that we have in this system. And we have been here at Suncoast Normal for years saying like, hey, no, this isn't right. Hey, no, this should be better. And it's gotten to a point where these multi-state operators have grown so big that they often think that they're untouchable, that they can build connections with other multi-state operators in ancillary sectors to do things like this with patient brokering, and it's not right. The issue that I have always advocated for is that as we move forward with adult use, as we legalize and re-legalize this plant, the medical system must stay intact. It must remain robust, because we've seen other states where they didn't protect the medical system,
Right.
and it doesn't necessarily work for sick people. We talked about the delays in the initial system. The whole point that I'm here today is because my father was diagnosed with a terminal form of dementia, and the only treatment that was available that was anything that was going to see any improvement was cannabis, and we didn't have access to it legally. And I went to jail for it. I caught felony charges for it, and I advocated for it. And he passed away before the Florida legislature ever got around to implementing the constitutional amendment.
Oh,
So
sorry.
I mean, and so continuing to do this work in his memory to me is important. And I think it's important for all of us out there who have loved ones that suffer from chronic debilitating conditions. There are so many people, and Nick touched on it earlier, veterans as a community who suffer every day with both visible and non-visible scars from their service to our nation. And we need to continue to push forward and make sure that bad actors are held accountable. So I thank both you, Nick, and Dr. Barry for all the great work you're doing, and we appreciate you coming on the show today. We will definitely love to hear more as this situation develops and see where this all plays out. And so again, thank you. And Nick, just one more thing. I just want to say I saw the way the app works. It reminds me of a combination of Weed Maps and the Geico app. Like you really put a lot of thought into
It didn't look like the Geico app, though. I'm not gonna lie.
but you put in a lot, and I just give those frames of reference for folks because you put in a lot of thought to making sure you cover all the bases, and I think that's
It's
great.
nice,
So thank you for putting out a great product out there, and thank you for be willing to hold
That's funny.
bad actors accountable in the system. We appreciate you.
I
My
have one more
pleasure.
question, so seriously, really
Yeah.
quick, Nick, just for you. It's a question, really quick. With your suit that you have in motion right now, you said it's public, but who can join in, and what's the deadline for them? Like, is it like a class act? What is it?
It's not a class act yet.
Right.
It very well could be, though. So
Mhm.
there is going to be an account that's going to be put together in a trust for people who have financially suffered, and that's as we evolve. There'll be. I mean, we can do this again as the case evolves, but there is
Correct.
going to be a trust put together. It's kind of part of the way that these types of lawsuits go with injunctive relief. So, I mean, I'll be able to obviously recover my legal expenses, hopefully, right? And if not, whatever. But there is going to be a trust that's put together. So it will eventually morph into a potential class action. So it just depends on the amount of people that want to join. But I think, we'll get probably a couple of, once there's traction, we'll get a couple of doctors that are going to definitely want to be part of this. And then I think there's going to be 1 or 2 MMTCs as well. So I'm blown away that MMTCs are actually doing this, to be honest with you. That's the part that stings the most. And I'm sure it does for Barry as well. Like, it sucks that these people that we've been working with, for almost 9 years now are actually willing to circumvent us, step on our heads as practitioners, to facilitate such a shady, kind of format.
Like they took the Krabby Patty and now they want to share it type deal.
No, for sure. And I want to add one thing that I know Nick would agree with. We don't want any patient to suffer, okay, that went through the LeafWell process, okay, and to have them lose their card. That's bad fallout for us, okay? We don't like that one bit, okay? And how that shakes down, I'm not sure. Also, when Nick talked about one, and I want to make a real important point about it, to the extent of competitors. Listen, Nick and I do what we do, but we're not competitors, right? We're in the same space. He does what he does. I do what I do. There are different price points in this biz of medical cannabis as well. I think Nick would agree. This is not about price, okay? People are surely, able to find that practice that fits their price point. And there is a role, okay, for different type of practices and business models within the Florida space. But everybody has to understand that in order to have a legitimate medical practice, you need to have an office setting that accepts your players coming in from the various parts of the space. And a part of that space are the established cannabis consumers that want to come in off the legacy market because of safety and because of legality. And admittedly, that type of patient does help to finance your practice, to take care of those sicker patients. It's just that fine balance. So it's not a matter of not having the ability to find a practice that fits your financial price point, okay? But have respect for those people that are out there that are moving the needle forward for everybody in the state.
And people need to know too, one vape cartridge is the same charge as having a gram of cocaine in your pocket. One vape cartridge is a felony. It's manufactured from its original form, and it is the same charge as a gram of coke. So
is that like for right now? Is that something new or it always been there?
No, that's
as we speak today.
Yep. Yeah,
Everybody
concentrates are a
deserves-
felony. 20 grams or more a felony. This is why we advocated for Amendment 3. Despite much of the criticisms that we had of it, is that we can't, in good conscience, continue to allow people to get arrested and get felony charges. I was hit with felony charges, and I didn't even have a felony amount. That's the way it happened with the police interaction at the time. So there is so much to be said about Florida's draconian drug laws and how outdated they are. And then even when you're in a state, for example, I have the opportunity to work up here in the DC area. You have a state like Maryland, and you have another adult use state like Virginia. Even workplace policies are still falling behind, where you can have legal medical use, you can have legal adult use, and you can still get fired from your job for following the law. So this is where we're at in this country right now, is this fluid area of what's legal, what's not legal. But what we do have right now in Florida is a clear statute that says it is not legal to broker patients. And we have a multi-state operating tech platform that is essentially hoodwinking both patients and even exploiting the doctors working for them, allegedly. And we're going to see how this all plays out and how that shakes out. So, Nick, I just want to give you the opportunity kind of to close out. Just tell folks where they can get in contact or how they can support what you got going on.
Yeah, well, they can't really support it yet, but like our website's myfloridagreen.com, for patients. But and then again, the Doc app, THEDOCAPP. That's the app. It doesn't matter who your certifying physician is. That app is not to take you away from your certifying physician. If anything, it's to improve and streamline your relationship with your certifying physician. And I want to go back. one vape cartridge, not 20 grams of concentrate, one vape cartridge in the state of Florida is a felony. One. You have one vape cartridge in your purse. Let's see, you don't have your marijuana card. You get pulled over. It's sitting in your cup holder. You go into jail for a felony. Every Monday, we have patients that spent the weekend in jail walking in to get certified because they got arrested for a felony. You get patients that are not patients, but you get customers that are buying those vape cartridges from the hemp CBD stores. They have it in their cup holder, whether it's Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10. They're going to test it. They're going to field test it, and it's going to test positive for THC, and you're going to jail for a felony. But I bought it at the CBD store. Don't give a fuck. You're going to jail, and that sucks. That sucks, right?
I had no idea, but I don't even do them.
Right, but that's the thing. That's the thing. People need to understand that.
Right.
Yes, we're still in a
We need to chart,
very
Chris.
very red and restrictive
Do
state.
you have a chart, Nick?
Sorry.
On your app? Do you have this information on your app? By any chance?
No, that information is pretty.
We do have the information. Folks can go to normal.org,
Okay.
and we actually have the laws in Florida, the possession laws available, and just exactly like Nick said, any amount of concentrate. We have the amount of flowers and also some of the penalties there, and it's also available at normal.org for various states. So anytime you travel in this country or you're traveling abroad, feel free to visit normal.org. You can find out the laws in the locality. But we do encourage smart consumers to do that. Find out what the laws are, where you're headed to, and even still in Gonzalez versus Wright, 2005, has been reasserted as a Supreme Court case that says even if you're traveling between two legal states, interstate commerce is still regulated by the federal government. Technically the feds can get you. And we live in a time right now where the feds have more and more power. You Border Patrol can pull anybody over essentially within 100 miles of a border, which means you pretty much got to live in Kansas in this country to not get necessarily pulled over or messed with without a warrant by ICE. And in many cases, what we've seen in DC with the federal crackdown is essentially that, Union Station, you headed to the train station and you're smelling loud, can get you harassed, can get you hemmed up. There's a lot to be said of what's going on in this country. I want to give Dr. Berry the
The people
opportunity.
that's in pain, the angry people that's always in pain, they have an issue because if they smoked some hemp and did what we did, knowing what it does, I think a lot of people would do it more. It's crazy. It's
Well,
a
I want to give Dr. Berry the chance to close out and tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Listen, I can always be found VeniceCare.com, Compassionate Cannabis Clinic. We're in Venice. And listen, it's been a great session, just to the extent of discussing the importance of medical. And, everybody in this state who's a cannabis consumer at this point in time deserves to be safe, to be legal, and to be educated, right? So that's my message to everybody today, be it Nick's group or my clinic or another legitimate practice in the state of Florida. Everybody get safe, get legal, get educated, get your card. Okay, we don't know when things are going to change in Florida. The inevitability of change is going to happen, and we're going to fight to make sure we have the best medical program in the country as well. But until which point we get to legal adult use, it's so essential right now, Nick. Thank you for the reminder. One vape cart, everybody, one vape cart. Get safe, get educated, get legal, get your card. That's my message. And guys, thanks so much for the soapbox. As you know, I'll come on anytime you ask.
Right. I'd like to make one more quick point and a very quick question for Nick before we head on to the news.
Sure.
And that is, it is so important that we maintain the legal aspect of this medical program because Tallahassee can fuck things up for us. They have made regulations before that have been so draconian, like the 1 gram situation, that can make things so much worse for us in the long run. That if you give them a chance, if you go ahead and break the law, they will change the rules and regulations. They can't get rid of the amendment, but they can amend the amendment. They can amend rules, regulations, and they can change statutes to make this medical program practically non-workable if they wanted to.
And they showed that. They showed that through the emergency rule back in August of 2022, where they started to restrict the amount of milligrams that patients can access over a 70-day rolling allotment, which, by the way, was signed the same week that Smart and Safe was signed. I don't know if that's coincidental. I don't know if, that could be a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But,
it's not what you know, it's who you know.
There is some questions with that one that But I have to go. I got a family waiting for me on the other side of the door. Thank you so much for having me.
Quick question, Nick. And
Yeah.
I'll make this very quick. To Katrina's point, in regards to joining your case, obviously, in order to join your case, you have to have standing. And
Yeah.
at this point in time, the gist of your complaint, as I see it, is direct harm to your organization. And so, therefore, that gives you the standing to go ahead and file this. But will you be accepting amicus briefs so that people can go ahead and support your effort as opposed to being part of it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would just I would wait and see. Let's wait and see, the spice that happens over the next 7 days. I think Barry, if he goes through his accounting and looks at his loss that he's suffered from over the past 6 to 7 months, he would have standing as well as any other clinic that serves the areas where they've been putting on these events. So, but yeah, just to be continued as far as answering that question. But yeah, amicus briefs are, of course, welcomed. We wrote one for Amendment 3, actually, that got shot down from the Supreme Court. But that one's ready to go if, the Amendment 3 gets to the chance to get back on the podium. So we'll see.
Appreciate
Okay.
it. Well,
Thanks,
with all
Nick.
that, folks, we thank you again, Nick. Thank you, Dr. Barry. It's time for the news.
Thank you, Nick.
So at the top of the news, I think the most important thing to understand is that the Trump Department of Justice has withdrawn key cannabis research and hemp testing rules. And what we need to know is how it's going to affect Florida. The U.S. Department of Justice under Attorney General Pam Bondi published a notice that it's withdrawn a number of proposed rules and regulatory actions that were put forward during the Biden administration. Among the 54 notices proposed, the rulemaking being withdrawn are a rule tied to medical marijuana and cannabidiol research expansion act, which was passed by Congress and signed by President Biden in 2022. This law intended to streamline the process for researchers to study cannabis. Another one that was withdrawn was a proposed rule to allow hemp labs to analyze Farm Bill compliant hemp and to do so without DEA certification. The analytical labs and hemp rule was to waive registration requirements for labs analyzing only hemp chemical content. The Department of Justice frames this move as part of a deregulatory initiative because of ongoing assessments of agency needs, priorities, and objectives. Importantly, this withdrawal does not, at least according to some sources inside the White House, include the broader proposal to reschedule cannabis under federal law. That is changing the classification under the Controlled Substances Act. That proposal, which Trump has indicated he would address, remains on the books. This is important and why this matters. Well, number one, stalled research. Eliminating streamlined pathways to research can slow or complicate efforts to conduct scientific research on cannabis. And we hear this all the time from the prohibitionists. We need more research. We need more research, despite the fact that you can go on to PubMed.gov and find tens of thousands of research about this. What it is having quality cannabis that's currently on the market ability to research rather than using the booth that they grow at the University of Mississippi, Oxford. So that's an important thing to look at. Also, the hemp testing burden. Without exemption for hemp labs that solely analyze hemp, which is federally legal in the Farm Bill, so long as the THC levels are compliant, still are going to have to be required to have DEA registration. And that adds cost, administrative burden, and limits the number of labs available to do testing, which cascades into delays and increased costs for farmers, processors, and businesses. It creates regulatory uncertainty. So because the proposed rules are being withdrawn, now there's confusion on what rules will govern hemp labs and research moving forward. Are there going to be new rules? Are the existing ones going to be enforced more strictly? For those in the industry and doing medical research, planning is difficult without stable regulatory ground. And lastly, the impact on patients and access. Medical cannabis patients may be indirectly affected if research is delayed, with less evidence, fewer innovations. And also folks in the hemp industry with CBD and other hemp wellness products can suffer delays in testing, which can affect product safety, market access, and compliance. So all the criticisms that we give to the hemp product market are essentially going to be compounded with this. It's like the government is not doing what it needs to do. So Florida advocates, listen up. There's some things to think ahead and look at. Look at state lab capacity. If federal labs face new burdens, state or private labs can fill the gaps, but only if the state laws and regulations and resources allow them to. Legislative oversight is something else to pay attention to. Right now, we've seen it time and time again where legislative oversight by the elected officials in Florida can sometimes overreach Sometimes it's not taking in industry concerns. Sometimes they've already been bought with campaign donations from the medical marijuana treatment centers. And we talked a little bit about that and covered that today, how there is sometimes insipid connections between MMTCs and other actors in our sector and in this industry that can affect patient outcomes. The patient implications are so important because Florida medical cannabis patients can't always afford all these delays in research. And most rules and withdrawals and proposed regulations oftentimes allow patients and members of the public to speak out, to give their input, and advocacy groups should be monitoring the Federal Register on a regular basis and submitting comments when these things come up, because this is your opportunity. And the process is so sad for public transparency. I mean, even when folks were going up to speak out against the overregulation of hemp products from the legislature, they were limited in some cases to just 30 seconds to talk before a committee after making a 4 or 8 hour drive to Tallahassee. So that is kind of ludicrous. Moving on to, the next thing I think is important is that the clock is ticking on cannabis rescheduling. It's been approximately over a month since President Trump announced at a press conference his administration is looking into federally reclassifying cannabis, and he'd make a determination in the next few weeks. Since then, neither the president nor his spokespersons have provided any further updates regarding their intentions, except what we see in canceling these rules. And normals, we're going to keep fighting. We're going to continue to highlight the policy limitations associated with cannabis rescheduling. We've generated nearly 45,000 letters to the White House calling for marijuana, calling for cannabis to be removed entirely from the Controlled Substances Act, and thereby allow the states the autonomy to set their own cannabis regulatory practices free from undue federal interference. And we've seen that the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, the MORE Act, has been reintroduced into Congress. This is an opportunity for us to continue to push and advance it and see if we can get it passed and get cannabis not rescheduled to Schedule 3, which we know essentially is only going to benefit those folks that are already in the inside, but actually deschedule it, actually open it up for states to create robust free markets around cannabis and give the opportunity for each state to determine how they want to regulate it. But more importantly, to make sure that we have home grow and that we have safe, quality, and affordable access. And these are all things that the federal government can do by just stepping the hell out of the way, because most of the issues we have right now in this country is because of the Schedule 1 status at the federal level. So if we can continue to do that, I think that'll make a big difference in what's going to happen with people's lives. And also understand that, we talk a little bit about cannabis testing. People want to know what they're putting in their bodies. People are concerned about that, whether it's what they get from a licensed MMTC in the state or whether it's what they get from a store that's selling federally compliant hemp products. Okay. And I think it's important because there was an analysis of literature recently published in the journal Scientific World coming out of India. And it's shared that vaporizer components may expose consumers to heavy metals, that there are components within certain cannabis vape cartridges that actually leach heavy metals like nickel and cadmium when they're exposed to high temperatures. A pair of researchers reviewed the data from 9 previously published studies, and the studies identified the presence of heavy metals like nickel, chromium, lead, cobalt, cadmium, and copper in the cannabis vape and e-liquids and aerosols. The investigators suggested that long-term contact between the metal parts of the cannabis vape and the acidic liquid may cause metal dissolution. This is something I personally had a criticism back in all the way going back to 2017, and I met with Kim Rivers personally, and I don't think she took kindly to the comment that I made, but I said, hey, my beef is the cheap vape cartridges that are being outsourced from China. And I think that that if you're going to put patients first, maybe you have better quality products. And I mean, the look on her face to think, she was going to hand me a check and I wasn't going to say nothing. Like, I'm not even taking this check. I don't want your money. I want you to put out better products. I want you to put out better quality products for the patients. I want you to put patients first. And so, you're going to get a lot of criticism, from at least on this end, because we're going to advocate for patients first. And I think that this is something that we need to continue to highlight. NORML has previously cautioned the various components in portable vape cartridges, including the heating coils, the wicks, the metal cores, and mouthpieces, can be sources of elemental emissions. And separate analysis of the aerosol produced by even nicotine-filled e-cigarette devices have similarly detected metal emissions. Look, It's highly important that we pay attention to what we put in our bodies. We had Dr. Barry on today. And I think it's important that the doctors who are on here also stay educated. I'm glad that he's out there trying to educate doctors, because the patient-doctor relationship is the core basis of education in at least the Florida system right now. And then, folks are going to have to get out there and make their own opportunities for education, and you got to be a smart consumer. No one is coming to save us, and I think that's also important as a transition to the next news story, is that folks are concerned about their medicine, but there's always that sensationalism as more and more people are consuming cannabis about what the effects are. And so data that's been published in the Journal of International Neuropsychological Society showed that there is no difference in the cognitive performance of older adults who consume cannabis. A team of investigators affiliated with the University of Michigan assessed the cognitive performance of 540 older adults aged 55 and up. Approximately 11% of the study participants reported modest cannabis use within the prior 6 months, while others reported no cannabis use. The subject's performance was similar across 5 cognitive domains: speed and execution, visual, attention, language, and memory, and regardless of whether they had a history of cannabis use. Overall, the results indicate that older adults reported using cannabis in the prior 6 months did not differ on neuropsychological testing results when compared to older adults who reported no recent use of cannabis. So, the 80s propaganda of, you're frying your brain out there clearly shows that as long as you have safe, tested, consumable cannabis, we're not seeing cognitive decline. And matter of fact, we've talked many times about research about the protective and antioxidant effects that cannabis has, even the patents that the federal government has that cannabis can help. And then, there's always that issue as more and more states legalize. Well, what about all these drivers on the road that are high and the danger? Well, interesting enough, according to driving simulator data published in the journal of Psychopharmacology, consumers who abstain for cannabis for 48 hours drive no differently than folks who don't smoke cannabis at all. There's no evidence of residual cannabis effects on driving performance. Researchers affiliated with the University of California at San Diego evaluated driving performance in a cohort of 191 cannabis consumers. Participants completed a 25-minute simulated drive following 48 hours of cannabis abstinence. In phase 2 of the study, a subset of nearly daily consumers were matched against non-using controls, and the current study showed no evidence of a dose-effect relationship between simulated driving performance following a brief abstinent period. The current study also shows no evidence of short-term residual effects on simulated driving performance when comparing frequent cannabis users to healthy non-using comparison group. Now, why is this important? Well, I think that the current workplace drug standards in legal states is far lacking. And that some participants who have people and patients that test positive for THC levels that classify them under the influence in certain states that have zero tolerance or per se THC drug limits are actually not necessarily impaired. They're not breaking the law. You're still able to work. You're still able to drive. If you decide that you're going to smoke a J on a Friday night, you go back to work Monday morning, there's no issues. I mean, clearly, according to what we're seeing, what we really need to see is an expansion of mobile performance technology to address workplace drug safety. There's technology like Druid. You can literally hand someone in this day and age an iPad or a tablet or a smartphone, and they take a 30 to 90 second cognitive test to see if they're able to work. And that is less invasive than taking people's bodily fluids, taking their blood. It's definitely something that can show that in performance and impairment. I mean, there are other things. People get loaded up on totally legal things, and they're getting a pass in the workplace. This is what we really need to look at is not invading people's personal bodily privacy and not considering anybody using cannabis a bad person or unqualified to work, but actually using technology to actually test for real impairment. So, and moving on to that, I think that as more and more states legalize, as we're seeing more and more cities decriminalize, we need to update the policies. And I'm happy to say that commissioners in Clayton County, Georgia, which has a population of close to 300,000, have approved an ordinance to actually decriminalize low-level marijuana offenses. The ordinance, which took effect immediately, amends the county code so possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana is reduced to a civil violation, punishable by no more than a $150 fine. Several cities in Georgia, including Athens, Atlanta, and Savannah, have adopted similar measures in recent years. Under state law in Georgia, possessing small amounts of marijuana is classified as a criminal misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and $1,000 fine. Since 2018, more than 80,000 people have been arrested in Georgia for violating marijuana laws. Nearly 90% of those arrested were charged with the misdemeanor possession. And since 2012, NORML has monitored and identified over 100 cities and counties nationwide that have passed ordinances providing significantly lower cannabis-related penalties than those under state laws. I'm proud to say in 2015, Suncoast NORML went before the Tampa City Council, and we advocated for them to adopt a civil citation ordinance. And so I think it's important for us to continue to advocate and push for decriminalization wherever we can find it. In the grand scheme of things, we appreciate all the hard work that folks have been putting in to what we've been working on here, and you can continue to support and make sure that we have your support, that we can continue to do great things with advocacy and education. And so with that, I want to say that we have an upcoming event. I think it's very cool because you can both have a very chill time and you can support a good cause. And that is our Puff and Paint, which is happening at the Battle Buds Bunker October 4th. Go visit our website, suncoastnormal.org. We have VIP tickets available. If you get a VIP ticket, you'll get a trap bag that you can decorate, sponsored by Cushy Pies. Shout out to Cushy Pies for sponsoring the VIP. Shout out to the Battle Buds Bunker for hosting, and thank you so much. We're looking forward to having the folks from Battle Buds come on the rotation in a couple of weeks and talk more about what the great things that they've been doing in creating a space for veterans and creating a home for the cannabis community right here in the city of Tampa. And so I'm pretty excited for that. And of course, again, visit our website, suncoastnormal.org. Get your tickets now before they sell out. It's going to be a great evening of just chill. Doors open at 9, so this is a great type of date night. Find a babysitter for the kids. Come on down and just have a nice chill evening. Get to mix and mingle with some great advocates and like-minded folks. With all that, team, we got a lot more work to do. The mission is not accomplished, and so we're going to need the support of each and every one of you. And that requires you to just do a little bit extra on your part, like hit that like and subscribe button. If we can get to the point where we can continue to elevate this platform across social media, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel where all of our past episodes are archived, and you can check out those past episodes of the rotation. But most importantly, you can become a member of Suncoast NORML, and your membership enables us to do great advocacy work. It enables us to put gas in the tank so Gary can get up there to Tallahassee and harass these politicians to the point where they have to take the meeting, where they have to sit down and listen. And I think that's the most important thing, is getting in that space and getting people in front of the folks in the political scene. You can follow us on Instagram. We've seen a lot of cannabis advocacy organizations, a lot of groups that are doing great things get cracked down on social media, even though we don't touch the plant, even though we're not selling anything. And so follow our new Instagram page, help us with our following, so we can continue to make sure that you're getting that information out there, and that you're getting the latest information of what's going on. And of course, if you ever have questions, or you ever arguing with that one relative or someone who's ignorant, hey, maybe you're someone in the community who is an advocate and you're going to go into a debate, go to normal.org. Our national deputy director, Paul Armentano, and I got to give a shout out to him, has for decades been on the front lines of this, on the research and compiling the research and putting it out there for the public to consume, for educated consumers. So go to normal.org and find out more. NORML needs your support. You can go to the national website for $42 a year and become a member, and continue to support all the great work that NORML's been doing since 1970. And we can't do this without the support of each and every one one of you. So maybe, being a member is not for you. Maybe it's not something you want. Remember, being a member gets you into our events with general admission for free. It gets you a discount with our business network. I know Carlos, our deputy director, he offers discounts to our members at Chillum. We have great resources on our website. So if you need information on how to get a doctor's recommendation or information on patient education, we have that available. But you can just hit the donate button as well. You can go right to our website. You can donate now and make a small contribution, whether that's $4.20, whether it's $1, whether it's $100, however much you're able to support the mission and continue to do what we do. So we appreciate all of that. Now, as we close out with the news, I think that it's important for us to really take a moment of reflection of what's happened this week in this nation. And I think that, regardless of where you wind up in the political spectrum, how you feel about what is said in the political discourse of this nation, uh, it is a time where tensions are at an all-time high. Um, People are coming out of the woodworks because of social media to say things that normally wouldn't be said in civil society. Things that people behind a keyboard are so brave to comment and say that they wouldn't say to someone's face because they know that there would be serious consequences. And then oftentimes, for many of us who see injustice, we think it's important to speak out and to point it out. And certain people don't like that. I was commenting to Gary the other day. He was on a social media post because someone had posted, "We need to deport all foreign members of Congress." And I said, "Gary, stop arguing with racist pieces of shit." And and now this guy is on a tirade about how I'm a bad person, and I called him and every Republican a racist piece of shit. I'm like, no. I said, don't argue with racist pieces of shit, especially with people who think that foreign board members of Congress should be deported. It's just ludicrous that in a nation of immigrants, a nation built by immigrants, and people who were brought here against their will as slaves, and people who have added to the greatness of what America is, continue to be marginalized and their contributions diminished in the political discourse currently that's going on, that the extremism in our political discourse is crazy. And I said it in the beginning of the show, and I'm going to close out with it. For those of us like myself who are professional shit talkers, who literally are advocating for folks for a living, who talk shit on a regular basis, this is a scary time, especially with having a family, having a son. After seeing what happened this week and knowing that there's now a family that no longer has a father around to take care of them, it does inject a level of pause and reflection that makes you think what we're doing. And for me, I'm definitely at a point now where I'm like, man, I don't even know if I want to continue to do this. But again, I said it to the doc and I said it to Nick earlier in the show. Evil festers when good people do nothing and don't say anything. So if anybody's got a problem with me, it's not a problem to just come to me face to face and say something. And if you do have a problem with me, pick up the phone and call me. And if you don't have my phone number, then that means you don't know me well enough to have any type of say so in order to talk that type of shit or make character judgments. And so I think it's important for all of us just to take a moment of reflection, pause, and think about what we say, how we say it. And Gary, I got to say this to you. I know you're an advocate. You're always out there speaking up for folks and speaking up for the little guy. But let's not play chess with pigeons, because even if in the game, they're still going to shit all over the board anyways. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to make one quick point before we leave. I mentioned last week or week before in regards to a friend of mine who was a researcher for Tikkun Olam who disappeared on August the 7th, 2023. She responded to me, finally. We finally found her. She is working in Thailand at a company, and apparently she was at the Nova Music Festival, and she left 1 hour before Hamas arrived.
Wow.
And she took off to Thailand after she went through lockdown for several days and started her new job, but obviously was being very quiet because of the tumultuous times that they were. But she's safe, and hopefully we'll be able to get her on the show because she wrote a fantastic paper on cannabis and autism, and I already used that as a reference in regards to trying to get autism as a qualifying condition. And hopefully we'll get a chance to let her have her mom on our show too very soon. I am just absolutely thrilled to death that she is safe.
Yep. Well, Gary, I'm glad that, and the world needs more great cannabis research out there. And I'm glad that she's safe and continue to be able to do what she loves to do and helping people. So that's awesome. Well, everyone, we will catch you next week. Again, hit the like and subscribe button, share across social media, and peace.